Good morning, good morning. We are in January and we're working through some WIPs. Clear the table. WIP is work in progress. So I've got a couple of things here that we're going to do today. Well, we're going to do one. Let's take one day at a time. So I do sell quite a few of these, and they're something I love making because they're kind of quick and easy for me. This is a book cover / iPad cover. Right now I have a book in it, but these are kind of fun. They're fun to make. It just has a Velcro tab at the top. It has a lining and it has a fusible fleece. So I'm gonna show you what I've got here. I have the little tab for the very top. It already has Velcro on it. And then we have the outer pieces. This is Alice in Wonderland fabric. And we have our second outer piece, and I've already added the Velcro to this. So these are things that kind of get half done, and then, I don't know, something comes along and I go ahead with that other thing and don't finish these. So I also wanted to point out that on both of these pieces, these outer pieces, I have fusible fleece. And this is just a fleece that you adhere with an iron with steam. It's like a little bit of glue on the back side of this fleece. And so I always cut the fleece about a ½ inch smaller than my actual pieces. And that allows for less bulk in the seam allowance. You can leave it all in there. It doesn't really matter so much. It just makes it a little bit easier to sew if you do not have all this extra little, it's maybe only 1/8 of an inch wide, but when you have all 4 pieces or all 2 pieces together and you're sewing it, it gives it extra bulk. And sometimes I don't really want that in there. So for these 2 pieces, I just cut it a little bit less. That's what I do. Other people will do different. So that's my outer pieces, my little tab at the top for a closure. And then this is my lining. Sorry, I always have really dry fingers and I can never get things open. So this is my lining piece. I've already added my label on the inside. And I've actually sewn it already. We leave the bottom open of the lining. So this is where we're gonna turn the iPad cover inside out. And then we just are gonna sew all these pieces together. So let's take the sewing machine and see how that goes. Okay, so we're at the sewing table and I am going to attach this little piece here, my little stopper or Velcro piece. And I've marked a spot here right in the middle of my my lining, my outer fabric. And I'm just gonna place this. I normally would put a little mark on this as well to match them up, but I didn't do that. So we're just gonna sew this on here. And then we are gonna take both outer lining and we're gonna put them right sides together. And you could pin this. I don't always pin this, but you could. So I'm just gonna flip that out so it doesn't stick because it gets kind of annoying. I actually might put a couple of pins in this just to keep it from moving. Okay, so we're just gonna put a couple of pins in here. Keep this from moving. Basically line everything up. Just gonna kind of mark put it in the corners, flatten it, and make sure it's kind of lined up nicely. Okay. So now I'm gonna sew it at about a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. I'm gonna back stitch, and as you can see, I'm mostly avoiding the interfacing here, which is what I want. So we've got our lining sewn together and our outer fabric sewn together. So right now I'm going to trim the corners just to have a little less bulk in each corner. And we just do that here. Make sure you do not trim the seam that you've just sewn. That's not what we want. And then we are going to put these together. So I'll show you how we do that. So sometimes this is always a bit of a thought process, but we want right sides together for both of these two pieces. So I am going to turn this inside out. All right, and this is what it looks like. This is, again, Alice in Wonderland fabric. This is the bunny. I forget what they call them. The white rabbit. That's what it is, the white rabbit. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I didn't remember that. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to put it inside of this. And as you're going to see, it's going to be right sides together. So I'm just going to go like that. And we're going to use our hand to sort of get that down in there. And then we are going to pin this. Now you can use clips or pins. At this point, depending on what my project is, I use both. For this one, I'm going to use pins. I don't know why. I feel like pins are a little bit better for this project, so just hang tight. And then the other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that my seams are laying flat, and by doing that I'm going to push one seam to the right and then the outer lining seam to the left, and then I'm going to pin right there, and then I'm going to go over to the other side and do the same on the other side. So I'm going to push the yellow fabric to the right and the blue fabric to the left, and I'm going to pin. That's probably why I prefer pins in this project other than clips. And then you're going to see that it's pretty evenly matched. I've done a pretty good job of making sure that the lining isn't too wide. By that I mean, like, I haven't used enough of a seam allowance. You can see it's pretty awesome right here. Sometimes I have to go back and take it apart and sew the lining a little bit wider of a seam, but right here it looks great. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to put a pin in the middle here, and I'm going to put a pin in the middle of the other side. I'm going to kind of pull it out. As you can see, I'm putting some pressure on it, and I'm going to put a pin in the middle part here, and then I'm going to put a couple more pins on each side, just sort of moving the fabric with the seam. I don't know how to explain it that well, but basically I'm just making sure that it's smoothed out, that there's not going to be any wrinkles or crimps in the fabric as I sew. All right, so a couple more pins here. The only thing with using pins on this is I am going to probably stab myself several times. Okay, so we have this pinned, and now we're going to take this to the sewing machine and we're going to sew a 3/8 of an inch seam along the top. Okay, and to make this a little bit easier on myself, I'm going to remove my free arm, or I'm going to remove the storage on my free arm. So this is the free arm of my sewing machine. A lot of the newer sewing machines these days always have this. If yours is a little older, you may not be able to remove that, but you can still work around that. Okay, so we are going to just sew a little bit this here at about a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. And I always kind of start a little bit off from the middle. I do not know why. It's just the way I've done it. And I'm gonna back stitch to make sure the stitch is locked. And we're just gonna sew along here at 3/8 of an inch, pulling out our pins as we come along to the pin. And this is where our tab is. So we're just gonna make sure we've got everything good here. Okay, so we've sewn along the top, and now we're pretty much done. We are going to open this up. We are going to put our hand through the the opening at the bottom of the lining, and we are going to maneuver gently maneuver it inside out. Okay, so at this stage, I'm kind of just do a visual check to make sure that I've got everything caught in the seam, my tab is caught in the seam, and I've got, you know, everything's sewn together. I'm just taking threads away because there's always lots of little threads. And then I'm going to sew the bottom. I'm going to tuck this in, and we are just going to sew at the, I always find when you do this kind of thing, the fabric naturally wants to almost go into the seam allowance that you've already made, generally, especially if there's no interfacing or no fleece. It pretty much does what you want it to do almost. So it's pretty straight there. So I mean, you could pin it, but I'm just gonna take it, freehand it, and I'm gonna sew this up. Okay, so we've got it sewn. I sewed along the bottom seam here. Now we're going to tuck this inside, and then we will just tuck it in there. Use our hand to sort of press, hand press the seam here, and I like to kind of make sure that the lining isn't just kind of stuck out at the top of the seam. And we're going to tuck that back in. We're going to make sure it's all in there nicely. Okay, so again, I have removed the sleeve, or what I don't even know what to call it, from my machine. So we're just going to use the free arm, and I'm going to sew a top stitch about 1/8 of an inch from the top of this here. And I don't know why I do this. I think someone showed me this a long time ago. If you start sort of not at the center, maybe the chances of someone catching on to where you started and stopped are a little less, because it's not directly in the middle of where you started sewing. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but yeah. Okay, so we're finished. We top stitched along the top. I used a blue thread on the outside and just a light gray on the inside. You don't have to do that, but I kind of like doing it. And the flap is here, and it's good. Yeah, we're all set. iPad cover, quick and easy. Thanks for following along. Can't wait to make another one.